So now let's take a look at what we're doing for the cloud. This came up earlier. This is the third topic. We have all of these competencies for handling data, for analyzing data, for acting on the data so that you can know and then you can act on the data as a customer, get a hold of your data. And in the cloud, as Kumar mentioned, this is doubly so because the people who are finding themselves having to administer this data, the storage admins for cloud data, are finding that they understand it even less than this because they didn't set it up. Someone set it up. Someone had an account, someone made some buckets, someone made more buckets, someone made even more buckets. They put stuff in those buckets and they forgot them. And now there's a whole bunch of stuff in the cloud. So we want to take these same competencies and bring it to cloud data. And to do that, the first cut of that is that we essentially spin up observer services in our own cloud next to the director and then point them at the customer's cloud. So the customer then can configure this installation should try to analyze this bucket. And again, we can get those same insights, the same pictures that we have in the director on the console, and then have the same uses of APIs going at this data that you have in the cloud.
But cloud storage could be S3, or does it have to be NFS, SMB?
S3 is the first one we're going after. Yeah. But it's not NFS SMB, but I can describe that in it.
So, I mean, how do you understand the metadata associated with an object? I mean, because it's a flat object space, it's a bucket address, object ID. That's sort of the metadata that you get from something like an S3 bucket, right?
Yeah, we do get some more. As far as the deeper metadata, like the ACLs and the like, those are very, very particular to each individual bucket provider.
Yeah.
But the main metadata, maybe we should just go to
demo first?
The demo.
Yeah, but I think we do, like to your question, we do get who accesses, access time, because even though it's not stored in the metadata of the object, but we can get that information from the cloud, from the S3 and expose it to the admins,
That's
right?
how spanning backups. And I think it's how all the cloud companies do backups, is that they get that from the API.
So I can do a quick demo first, and then you can go, okay. Sure. So it's very similar. What you see here is just different colors. It's our kind of a newer product here. But what you see over here is the same thing, exactly the same thing. And I think one thing what we noticed is getting that information within a cloud provider is very hard, right? They have multiple services that you have to go through to get this information you need. Like if you go to your S3 kind of object store listings, like you only see the objects there and you have to click one by one to get it. You cannot get an overview picture of your data across your buckets easily. You cannot get a picture of your data within a single bucket even easily, or different buckets that you want to choose. And you can definitely not get easy information about access times in most of these object stores because information is not stored on the object itself. Right? That information is not tracked on the object itself. It's not part of the
extension information. I mean, it's
extension information, like all that analytics. You don't get that, right? You don't know what's being stored in the object store, and that's what when we talked to a lot of our customers, when we had our product for the on-premises, they said the same thing. Hey, we had the same problem. Like Northwestern as an example, they said we have the same challenges in the cloud. We are moving a lot of data in there, but our users are creating a lot of data in the cloud as well. There is no good visibility into that, right? And what you see over here is the same thing, right? You can see the data by last access. You can see how much is hot and that recently accessed, how much hasn't been accessed over more than 1 year for a particular bucket or a group of buckets. You can see the same thing by last modified, which is really last created. You modify an object, it gets uploaded again. But then the same thing, right? One of the big thing is if you want to do any transitions to the object where you want to move the data from S3 to IA or Glacier, right? There's no information that AWS provides easily on how much savings I will do to my bucket if I enable this policy. right? And what should be my policy, right? That's not really easy to figure out. And with the analytics that we get, we can recommend to the users, we can show them, hey, not only how much cost that you have today, but if you really move this data to IA and Glacier, what would be your cost savings? And in that information you can see down over here, where we can see, okay, this is how much you're paying today. That's your current bill, and we get that information, not just with their storage cost, because there's a lot of, and I was talking to a customer yesterday, they said, hey, what about the hidden costs, right? They're not really hidden costs, but they're costs more than the storage cost. That's your API cost, your egress cost, your data retrieval cost that comes into the play in the public cloud. How do you track that? And we get that information as well, and then we can project how much your cost savings and what your cost would look like if you enable this policy, right? And that policy we enable is based upon access time, not based upon when the object was stored in the bucket. That's where most of the ILM policies are in the cloud provider itself. They're not based upon access time. And that's going to be different from the ILM within the cloud providers.
And access time is much more accurate.
Yeah, it is. That's what you want your tiering to happen based upon access time, not your creation time of the object. So it's the same thing. You get that. You get the usage information that we saw before. How much is in each bucket? How many number of objects I have in each bucket? How much data is retrieved from each bucket? You don't get that visibility very easily in the cloud itself, and that's something that you can easily get from Komprise. If you want to see usage by not by cost, by consumed, by number of objects, you can really do that as well. You don't want to see accounts. You want to see by extensions. I think it's here, there, but you can get that as well, right? You can really find all the metadata that you have on the object. You can search it by. Not only that, what we also showed about deep analytics, the same thing applies here as well, right? Where you can search by Komprise tags, AWS tags, object name, size, and really get the list of objects where they are in your bucket, because it's really hard to find, right? When you have millions and billions of objects spanning across your multiple accounts, spanning across your multiple buckets, how do you extract that? How do you find that information? It's very easy to do that in the product because we are analyzing everything, we are indexing everything, and you can use Komprise to tag those objects as well within the cloud.
And the tagging is going to be maintained in the director, deep analytics
yeah.
database.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes. So another thing that and I think the question came up about, so that was over, we were analyzing NFS SMB already. This adds the capability to analyze S3 object store as well. We're starting with the AWS cloud. That's our beta coming, but then we will come quickly with on-prem object stores and other clouds as well after that, so that you can analyze everything. You can analyze all your data, all your unstructured data across your storage, file server storage, your object stores, that whether they are on-premises or in the cloud, and even, I think Mike will extend that in the architecture, even your file services within the cloud providers like Windows FSx or EFS, or you have NetApp on cloud and all that stuff. And that actually, some of the customers are already using our product to analyze and move data from NetApp on cloud and Windows FSx on AWS as well. Right? So those are Windows SMB servers on AWS cloud running, or NetApp file services on AWS running. So you can actually use it today as well to actually analyze and move the data, but it will be much more seamlessly integrated with one touch click, and then you go ahead and spawn the services to be able to do that.
So I can move on. So as Mohit said, the next step here, after we are able to analyze that bucket and bring those insights to the director, bring those observations to the deep analytics to contribute to that global database that we have there.
So when you migrate an S3 object, do you leave a link behind, or how is that transparent to the object user?
So in the case here, we're actually tiering it within the same bucket. So we're just changing the storage class for it.
You're tiering it within the same bucket.
Right. So we just changed the storage class to the storage class that matches the access pattern that we're seeing. So something that should be colder, that is colder, we put in a cheaper storage, and something that's hotter, we put in the better storage. You know, Amazon, AWS has these ILM policies to do this, but they're all based on that create time. And they kind of give you hints, well, this is how much was accessed of things that were this old, but it really doesn't tell you which of those things should be sent to colder storage and which shouldn't, which should go to cheaper storage and which shouldn't.
Yeah, so it's seamless for the user, right? Because within the object prefix itself, nothing changes, right? Because as we are tiering within the cloud, so the same prefix, same object name remains, and we just change the storage class, so it goes. So now on, you'll be paying less for this object because now it's in a different storage class, and than anything else.
And the thing that I want to bring up again is that as he's mentioning, it's based on access time is important because if it were based on create time, which is what you get, which is the ILM policy you get today on AWS, if something is being actively used, read, for example, that time doesn't change. If now you were to stick it into Glacier or even S3IA, and then you access it again, it's additional costs. So we are able to eliminate those additional costs by being smart about it and only moving things that you're not accessing. And that's critical.
Does that filter through into your savings calculation that you show on the front page?
Yep.
Yes.
I think another use case for the cloud analytics that a lot of customers have brought up is cloud-to-cloud migration. Because they want to understand how they're using data in one cloud, and then they want to use us to actually migrate from maybe a object store to a public cloud, or a public cloud back to an object store, or one cloud to a different public cloud.
Do you ever see them, your customers, looking at their options to keep a subset of operations or applications in one cloud or the other, or on-prem? Like, do you ever see them trying to do that analysis?
Yeah, we've seen customers, they want to keep, I think one use case was, we asked a customer, hey, why do you have Google Cloud and AWS Cloud? And there were some specific services they like in Google Cloud better than AWS, so the data associated with those services has to be in that cloud, right? So just based on application, the use cases, and other use cases, they want to be not dependent on one cloud, right? So they want to have some vendor agnostic capabilities, right?
So I would imagine sometimes there's better things to test in the cloud and then bring it back on-prem, especially when you're talking about large data sets.
Yeah,
as well, right?
we have customers doing both ways, right? They're generating data in the on-prem a lot, and now they have the private cloud, which is again filling up. It's not completely elastic. Right? They have to buy more hardware and storage, so they want to identify the objects that are not getting access and just move it out basically to the public cloud, but they want to keep it, and they might want to run the applications there to use that object.
But we're also seeing requests for,
bringing it back.
Bringing it back.
Yeah.
So we have some cloud regret, and we want to bring some of it back.
Yeah.
So as we've been saying, there are cloud filers that are now appearing because there are a lot of applications that are happy working in file system, NFS, SMB. So the cloud filers being offered by cloud providers, and these are very, very expensive because these have to be very fast access. And so to manage those, since those are generally in the VPC of the cloud, essentially it looks like another site to us. The observers are brought up there. They can analyze the data on the shares as NFS or SMB. And in fact, we can now we can archive data from those shares to their cloud storage and save them huge amounts, yet it still is transparent to whatever applications are needed that are interested in going after NFS and SMB data in the cloud.
What's the magic? Have you found like archive data, live data, 1 week, 3 weeks, 3 months? I mean, is there a cost you know?
I mean, most of the users, it's probably they do year because they have 1 year to start with, right? Because they have an archive for a long time. But we have some customers who have they have archive filers already ready, but they are growing out of space as well. They want to offload everything basically from those filers as well, right? Because really, we're talking about cold data here, but certainly they start with 1 year, and then they kind of gradually change the policy, right, to bring it lower as well.
In most environments, 75% of the data is a year or
Old.
more
Yeah.
old.
Well, have you had issues with legal hold or making sure, you know, grab data, that kind of stuff? No problems?
No.
Okay, great.
And I'll tell you, actually, some of our customers archive more aggressively. Again, because the more they can, within 3 months. So that again saves more costs, can reduce the primary storage footprint as well.
Okay.
So, and the fact that we are able to provide transparent access allows them to be more aggressive. Otherwise, they couldn't afford to be so aggressive.
And that could also be correlated to the egress charges, so you know, and then helps them make sure.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to bring up, that they're talking about the native file systems in the cloud. They're about 10 times more expensive than S3 and beyond. So if you can archive there, it really saves you a lot of money. And if you can archive aggressively, even better.
Yeah, and considering it's probably specialty applications is why you're doing this, then they probably do have very, very short access windows, and you can probably archive very fast off there, but then bring it right back when you need to. And being the cloud, that thing will expand as needed.
Exactly.
It's bottomless itself, so the rehydration, if needed, just happens, and then after another week, you just age it off again. So the final piece here actually was hinted at in the fact that you see deep analytics up here in the cloud data management presentation, is that all of these observations too, just like the observations of the cloud data that we were looking at, of the cloud object data, the actual NAS data, all the data that you point us to, we send all that stuff back into that deep analytics. So it is a global metadata lake across all of your storage, whether it's cloud, on-premise, whether it's NFS, SMB, mixed share, S3, other bucket storage. All of that is available to you in the deep analytics and is then actionable at that point. You can go query it, you can go tag it, you can classify it, you can give your reports, you can build out whatever applications you want through the APIs to make that metadata lake serve you and your needs with your data.
You can see that this is truly what I'd call a hybrid data management platform. It doesn't matter where your data resides, and it allows you to grow. As you grow, it allows you to change and flex, and and with agility, be able to go to different architectures, and different kinds of storage, and it's and you're perfectly fine. And so, really speaking, and a lot of our customers, you can manage your data globally across the globe with this kind of an.
So what sort of HA capabilities do you have for the deep analytics director and the director? I mean, so the observers, you've got multiples of those, so you can have, one die and the other one will take over and presumably do what it needs to do.
Yep.
But the deep analytics engine and the director engine, these become more critical as you start moving data left and right.
So the deep analytics is built on Elasticsearch, so it uses those internal characteristics of high availability. There are 3 machines at a minimum. You add more if you need to. Machine goes down, you have time to put another machine in there and rebuild that index. The director, it really serves as the console. So it needs to be backed up regularly because it does hold a significant amount of configuration and state. But it's, the HA, we have not really had as much of an HA concern or desire on the director, because you can just spin up another director on the state if you need to.
And it's not on the path of the data at all, right? So it's just to show the UI.
Just establishing policy for either migration or archive.
Exactly. And we, as if it runs as a service, we are monitoring it. We provide a good SLA on a service to be always running, right? And so that the users don't, really have an impact. If they run on premises, then we provide them guidelines how to back it up and bring it up if it goes offline.
And the policies it is using are also backed up into all the observers? Is that?
Those policies are sent down to the observers to say, please execute this policy over this share and return it here into this object.
So even if the director goes down, they're still working. Observers are still working. They know what to do.
Right.
Yeah. And critically, like you say, that access. So when I go to the data on the primary share and I'm redirected, that access address is always picked up by a surviving observer if one of the observers goes down.
Can you actually write a policy that, track data leaks?
Data leaks.
Yeah, some files got pushed out somewhere that is unknown. Can you guys actually have something that can trigger that?
Those might appear as excess access.
Yeah.
But
Access.
yeah, would there be a policy? I mean, you could write a query on
DA.
analytics that says, if I see access for some share rise precipitously from this day over the last day.
Okay, so you can see a spike and something.
You could look for a spike of that. But yeah, we aren't, I mean, these shares are the customer shares. They're people that are coming in from the side to get to that data.
Okay, got it.
One last question. Let's say my license elapses and I'm no longer a licensed product, and I've got 4 petabytes of data that have been archived and 1 petabyte that's active. What happens to all these links that
They work. I mean, we don't shut down your observers or anything like that. I mean, you're out of support at that point of time, but otherwise, you have the current software and you can access it.
But no new policies would be
Exactly.
creatable, or
Exactly.
the current policies would stop operating? Is that?
If you have reached the capacity limit, yes, right. But that's what it is, based upon the capacity. So if you have already analyzed what you're supposed to, you can't analyze more after that. But the access will continue to work. Access doesn't stop.
But of course, we have.
You cannot move more data. You cannot do anything else. But access continues to work.
As long as the access is.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So you still are in control of your data.
There were some questions on migration. Do we want to cover
Sure.
how it's multi-threaded? It does MD5 checksum.
Yeah. So we today in the product, we already have what we call a NAS to NAS migration. So you can migrate from NFS to NFS, SMB to SMB, and really migrate your file servers. And it's a really parallel, again, based upon our kind of core architecture of observers. It's really distributed. It can really migrate data really fast because we can go across multiple observers at the speed you want and migrate the data. And within each observer, obviously, it's multi-threaded and everything. And it follows multiple iterations that we are able to quickly identify what changed within a particular day. And once you are close to your cutover time, right, you really have a small window where you can, make your source file servers read-only, and then we go ahead and do one final iteration, migrate the data to the destination, and then you can point your users to the new location. And as I mentioned, right, we had a customer who did a multi-petabyte migration cutover over the weekend successfully, right? So they were able to do that cutover, over the weekend itself. They were able to point after the users came in Monday morning. They were pointed to the new location, and without any issues, right? So that's our NAS to NAS. What we are also with our object store S3 analytics, what we're also coming out with soon, is our S3 to S3 migration, where the similar thing, similar architecture applies there. You have multiple observers. You can migrate, as we mentioned, from on-prem S3 to cloud. Within two clouds, you can migrate as well, or from cloud to on-prem, right? So you can go from anywhere to anywhere, really, and you can do S3 to S3 migration. All right. I think that's.
Yeah, and I think as Enrico mentioned, our migration is analytics driven. So we know what data is important and what data is not. So it's a smarter way to migrate. You can plan your migration. and there's no sunk cost. It's included in the product because most of our customers do archiving and then periodically they have data center consolidation or storage refresh. So migrations is just a part of the overall solution.
So all
They don't pay
digital
extra.
products are included.
Yes,
No
we have
matter what.
we have one license that includes everything. If you only want to buy migration, we do sell that separately. If a customer only wants to use it for migration first, but if you buy the product, you get it along with the product. Yeah, everything is included.
And our migration, the migration-only product comes with analytics because we feel it's absolutely important that you're able to make decisions and understand what you want to migrate so you can migrate efficiently.
So what do you tell your customer then? First do a certain period of analytics before you start migrating?
I think they generally want to know because they want to decide where they're going to migrate from where.
Yeah.
So their natural tendency is to analyze first, understand what they have, and then devise their migration plans.
Okay.
So is migration, is that really just like a short-term contract? Because technically, couldn't
right.
you just need to run this for 3 months to clean up your filers, but you weren't gonna move? Okay.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Yes. It's more project-based.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And migration doesn't necessarily use your links or anything like that.
No,
It's
that's
actually
just
moving data from one
Actually
place
moving
to another.
data, attributes, ACLs, again, everything. Right? All the attributes, permissions, and everything from the file, metadata and data. And we do, obviously we do checksum and validate if everything is copied successfully.
And of course, you can do hundreds. So, for example, this customer that Mohit was talking about, they managed several thousands, tens of thousands of shares with us. But through the analysis, they decided these are the ones that they wanted to be able to move, and they were doing roughly almost 400
4 or 5,
migrations simultaneously, and cutting over 400 in the weekend.
So everything is very cool. What's up next? I mean, what are your customer asking from this product as the next big feature that can save their life?
That's very
Well, not their life. I mean, you're right. Vanity.
better hospitals, but yes. So again, one of the biggest things is the cloud. This is the new product that we're pushing out. We're getting tremendous interest. And so we're focusing on that right now. And then the idea is, as I sort of mentioned at the end, is that now you can put it all together. So we're seeing that many of our customers saying, "Hey, I don't want to go to two different things to be able to manage my cloud data and my on-premises data. It should be one thing." And that's our philosophy. Our plan was always to come together like this at the end, and that's our focus. So cloud management and tying it all together. And we're going to be looking at more features within deep analytics as well, because we're seeing a tremendous interest there.
Do you have any storage vendor asking, to access your data? I mean, everybody is working on some analytics tool, but they can't do anything about the content. So NetApp, and we saw Dell yesterday, everybody. But they can analyze actually what is happening in the content.
In the content, right? So
while you are starting to do a lot of it, okay? So associating the two information, I mean, what is happening in the storage and what is happening, inside the storage, at the storage level and inside, it would be powerful. I mean, there are a lot of insights that you can get from that. Do you have anybody asking for
So some people have asked. I think people are still grappling with the ability to be able to just understand and be able to do these kinds of search and tagging that they couldn't do before. But as I mentioned, and we talked about that architecturally, we have that ability. So that we can do that. And furthermore, if we do it, we're going to provide APIs as well with which you can do it. And that's how other vendors could lock into what we're doing. For example, if you look at even data classification and so forth, you could imagine that you have two sets of a major data classification solution that does all kinds of classifications. But now they're using Komprise to tag everything. And now you have classification-based management.
Maybe I asked the question, but now that I think about it, maybe the storage vendors don't like you. Because in the moment that you come in and you demonstrated that they have more storage than they really need,
Well, I'll tell you
You
one
know,
thing.
it's like.
Okay, but believe me, some of our bigger customers, for example, some of our storage vendors, primary storage vendors bring us in. Why? Because they're also selling, the secondary object stores.
Yeah.
And so now we can, so now they're becoming cost effective and they can compete with the other guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then sometimes they're both bringing us in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see them using a migration solution to tech refresh or
Absolutely.
go from vendor X to vendor Y or something like that.
Exactly, that's another one. So a lot of people that are selling their brand new flash storage devices are coming in and working with us so that we can migrate data from the old to the new. So they actually work with us. And so in some ways, we actually drag more storage, to be honest with you. It's a different kind of storage, but we drag more storage with our product.
So if you are solely deploying this on premises, what does it look like when you stand it up for the first time? Do you have to have professional support, or do you just kind of give the organization what they need?
So it's a very simple thing to deploy. We do provide, not a professional services, but like a kind of quick start deployment where we help them deploy, initially few terabytes, 100 terabytes of data that they can analyze, move, and stuff, and then after that they're kind of good to go. But it's a very simple deployment. I think generally they have POC, they have deployment already in place. They just extend to it by adding more observers, and here you go.